Good afternoon, everyone. Rob again from Nutritional Europe. Welcome to lesson 4 of our Essentials of Nutritional Medicine series with Dr. Robert Silverman. Lesson 4 today will be covering integrating fasting into nutritional protocols. The same as always, if anyone has any questions, pop them in the question box at the side and we'll go through at the end. So let's get straight onto it. Rob, I'll pass it straight over to you.
Thanks so much, Rob. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here. And I can tell you that I've been using, we'll call it intermittent fasting. You'll see as we go through the slide deck that there are a few other definitions. I've been using the time restrictive eating, intermittent fasting in my office for about the last 18 months. And I truly watched the revolutionary change in the literature and the positive effect on patients. What I like most about it is it doesn't cost a cent. There's no kit for intermittent fasting. There's no supplement, although there'll be supplements that work extremely synergistically to make the fasting work better. So having said all that, I really like to cover the idea of integrating fasting into nutritional protocols. It is a true functional medicine approach. And the reason it's a true functional medicine approach is it allows to fix the body from inside out. One of the more famous people who have written on fasting, he's got a great book. It is on fast mimicking diet, which we're really not going to go into a great detail. But what he's done was he was truly the first to do studies on fasting, and there's been this large litany of studies coming out of the idea of fasting. He said, in reference to fasting, awakening the body's dormant ability to heal, protect, regenerate, and rejuvenate itself. Plato said that he fasted for greater physical and mental efficiency. So what's the problem? And you've probably seen me go through this before. Sugar consumption, whether you're in America like I am, where we just consume 160 pounds of sugar, or you are in the EK, sorry about that, sugar consumption poses an issue. Sugar is a problem. It's the most consumed drug over the counter. It works with the reward center in the brain. When mice were offered sugar, 94% of mice took sugar over cocaine. We as populations consume too much sugar. Remember, there's an essential fat, there's essential amino acid, there are no essential carbohydrates. Clearly, sugar has no other than just pure caloric intake. It has no nutritional value. Wheat consumption. And we get to the idea of gluten, and I speak so much about triggers and removing triggers. Gluten is a tremendous, and the proteins of gluten are tremendous triggers to damage your gut. 80% of your immune cells are in your gut. I believe, once again, we'll do a whole host of segments on gut, that the gut health is the epicenter of your health. It, again, is 80% of your immune cells. It's where your macro and micronutrients are absorbed. Anything that can damage it, like a gluten means glue in Latin, sticks to your intestinal tract. Let's try and minimize to avoid all gluten intake. Caloric sweeteners, those colorful packets that we all see in the little coffee shops coffee or tea shops that we all frequent, they are extremely ruinous to overall health. So much so, they increase the incidence of dementia and stroke when consumed by 2 to 3 times. There's a rise in diabetes. It's actually that diabetes is the combination of diabetes and obesity together. It's a parallel rise. Dr. Mark Hyman used that idea, and you're going to see diabetes increase, obesity increase, and really both of them will be adversely affected by the fact that you have intestinal permeability, leaky gut, etc. So the whole cascade is really revolving once again around the gut. Joint pain, back pain, osteoarthritis. Everybody knows I'm a chiropractor. There are a lot of manual therapists. We all know that too many people are having musculoskeletal failures and musculoskeletal faults. NSAIDs, non-steroid anti-inflammatories. They decrease pain but impair healing. Nutraceuticals decrease pain but promote healing. We're going to offer you some nutraceuticals. Obviously, we want to minimize medications as much as we can. We want people on a more wholesome lifestyle plan. toxins and stress. We live in a toxic, stress-filled world. And last but not least, as you've heard me say possibly before, increased neurodegenerative disease. In America, and you guys, we parallel each other, if you will, neurodegenerative diseases are on the rise. They project that half of Americans will have a symptomology of neurodegenerative disease by 2050. Globally, 1 in 5 deaths are associated with a poor diet. So poor diet contributes to a range of chronic diseases. So obviously, even though we're going to talk intermittent fasting, we also want them to consume a good quality diet. Fasting was an integral part of the healthy human diet, which we recently lost. Due to food scarcity, fasting was a part of the human diet for 99% of our evolution on Earth. Fasting was sustained by major religions. The 4 major religions actually did fasting. It was not uncommon for centuries to fast. Unfortunately, fasting was replaced in the last 50 years by patterns of uninterrupted daily food intake, eating every 3 hours, though 5 to 6 meals a day, which now we know is incorrect. Fasting is the #1 diet plan in the US in 2018. In 2019, it was actually #2 behind clean eating. Keto rose, paleo and Whole30 dropped. Plant-based and flexitarian diets were added. In 2020, all the different magazines speak to the idea of intermittent fasting being a top 5 dietary adherence. Fasting cure is no fad. The Wall Street Journal wrote an essay about a year ago speaking to the idea of new research showing profound benefits for the loss of weight, increased longevity, and fighting disease. The idea is eating only during limited hours. And once you eat during limited hours during the day, it now has a different definition. And that definition is going to be called time-restrictive eating. Fasting originated in ancient evolution and healing traditions across millennia. It has been shown to support overall metabolic health. It supports cellular cleanup that leads to cellular regeneration and an increase in circulating stem cells. It impacts markers associated with an increase in human longevity and human span. So the different types of fasting, as I was alluding to before, time-restrictive eating, intermittent fasting, and prolonged fasting. Let's take the center one. Let's talk about intermittent fasting first. The true definition of intermittent fasting is 1 or 1 to 3 days of fasting, non-consecutive. You don't eat during the day. Time-restrictive eating or feeding is mice, it's eating for humans, is a daily pattern of eating. So there's windows. So when you say intermittent fasting, so 5 and 2, 5 days you eat, 2 that you don't eat, fasting in days, that's intermittent. Time-restrictive eating refers to the concept of hours, 16 and 8. The first number, interesting, is the fast when it comes to hours. The second number, 8, is the window in which you eat. So 14 and 10, 16 and 8, 18 and 6 are windows that have been studied. Now we go to the right side of the slide and we talk about prolonged fasting, which is 4 or more days of consecutive fasting. Water-only fasts, believe it or not, for 4 days are very tough, which is not surprising, but the water-only fast has some good health benefits. Unfortunately, there's loss of muscle mass. And then there's that fast mimicking diet that Longo has made so popular, where you eat just enough food to keep yourself from being hungry, but you fool your brain into fasting, so you get all the cellular benefits of fasting. So fasting ramps up metabolic human metabolism. The study was done by Geo Cell Unit and Kodo University researchers. It stated fasting, which puts the body in starvation mode, leads to fuel substitution, antioxidation, increased mitochondrial activity, and alters signal transduction. Intermittent fasting and diabetes. Intermittent fasting was known to improve sensitivity to blood glucose, lower insulin, protect against fatty liver, and lower pancreatic fat. So the mechanism was the increased secretion of insulin caused the islands of Langerhans of diabetes-prone animals to deplete more quickly and ultimately cease functioning completely. So when you refer to the idea in the studies as intermittent fasting, they have made intermittent fasting synonymous with time restrictive eating. So when it's a true intermittent fast, taking the day off, I will tell you about the study. Great study in New England Journal of Medicine at the end of December 2019. Here are some of the key takeaways. Ketogenesis occurred to make ketone bodies, decreased free radical production, weight loss. Cellular responses were as follows: increased glucose regulation, increased stress resistance, suppressing inflammation. Ketone bodies are great because they're fuel during fasting, potent signaling molecules with major effects on cells and organs functions. Some of the clinical applications that came out of this very robust study were, they looked at obesity and diabetes type 2, of course. Cardiovascular disease, there was improvement in specific indicators like blood pressure, resting heart rate, levels of HDL, LDL, cholesterol, triglycerides, glucose, insulin, and insulin resistance. They actually had decreased markers for overall systemic inflammation and oxidative stress, which both are related to atherosclerosis. They actually also improved heart rate variability, which showed an increase in parasympathetic tone and a balancing in the autonomic nervous system. Decreases in neurodegenerative diseases, asthma, surgical, and ischemic tissue injury were also noted. Finally, the accumulating evidence said to eat in a 6-hour period and fasting for 18 hours can trigger the metabolic switch from glucose to ketones. So it had to be 16 and 8 in that study, which is indicated here, and or to 18 and 6. However, the options of skipping breakfast and skipping dinner want to make this clear. You want to eat breakfast, but skip dinner. So you want to start theoretically at 8 a.m. You want to go to 8 to 2, 8 to 4, or 8 to 6, depending on the windows that are chosen for your individuality. So let's look at cellular responses to energy restriction that integrates cycles of feeding and fasting metabolism. Total energy, diet composition, and length of fasting between meals contribute to oscillations in the ratio of levels of bioenergetic sensors, NAD to NADH, ATP to AMP, and acetyl-CoA to CoA. These intermediate energy carriers activate downstream proteins and regulate cell function and stress resistance, including transcription factors such as FOXOS and PGC1 alpha and NRF2. Intermittent fasting triggers neuroendocrine responses and adaptations characterized by low levels of amino acids, glucose, insulin. By the ability to downregulate IGF-1, signaling pathways and reduction of circulating amino acids, repress the activity of mTOR, resulting in inhibition of protein synthesis and the stimulation of autophagy. During fasting, the ratio of AMP to ATP is increased and APK is activated, triggering rehab and inhibition of anabolic processes. All these are leading to specific improvements in health and disease resistance. Another metabolic adaptation to intermittent fasting. These are really great slides. Again, we're really piggybacking and talking about this New England Journal of Medicine article, which is without question a very prestigious periodical. Energy restriction for 10 to 14 hours or more results in depletion of liver glycogen stores and hydrolysis of triglycerides to free fatty acids in fat cells. Free fatty acids released into the circulation and transported into hepatocytes where they produce the ketones bodies. The most predominant one is beta hydroxybutyrate. Free fatty acids also activate, as you're looking at this slide, the transcription factors, which are PPAR alpha and activating transcription factor 4, resulting in the production and release of fibroblastic growth. This fibroblastic growth factor 21 is a protein with widespread effects on cells throughout the body and the brain. Ketone bodies are actively transported into cells where they can metabolize to acetyl-CoA, which enters TCA cycle and generates ATP. Beta hydroxybutyrate, the gold medal winner, has signaling functions, including the activation of transcription factors such as cyclic AMP and able to decrease NF-kappa B and increase the expression of BDNF in neurons. Reduced levels of glucose and amino acids during fasting in reduced activity of the mTOR pathway and upregulation of, once again, autophagy. In addition, energy restriction stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis and mitochondrial uncoupling. Lastly, with this long period of slides where there's a lot of great information, my suggestion is to review this section once again. Periods of dietary energy restriction sufficient to cause depletion of liver glycogen stores, trigger a metabolic switch towards the use of fatty acids and ketones. Cells and organ systems adapt to bioenergetic challenge by activating signaling pathways that bolster mitochondrial function. Stress resistance and antioxidant defenses while upregulating autophagy to remove damaged molecules and recycle their components. During the period of energy restriction, cells adapt to stress resistance mode through its reduction in insulin signaling and overall protein synthesis. Exercise enhances these effects of fasting. On recovery from fasting, obviously eating and sleeping, glucose levels increase, ketone levels plummet, and cells increase protein synthesis, undergoing growth and repair. Maintenance of an intermittent fasting regimen, as we know, time-restrictive eating, combined with regular exercise, results in many long-term adaptations that improve mental and physical performance and increase disease resistance. So let's move on and really talk a little bit more, pick the pace up a little on intermittent fasting. 5 to 15% of the body's energy is dedicated to digestion. Digestion actually improves through efficiency of what we call the migrating motor complex. Migrating motor complex is your body's own peristaltic contractions that enables you to move food bolus. Fasting gives a break from digestion, and it leads to actually improved digestion health, so you can see how it can be very, very beneficial for gut health. Autophagy, make note, starts at hour 13 and incrementally increases and shifts into high gear at hour 15. Intermittent fasting has shown to decrease insulin, lower insulin production, weight loss, improves body composition, boosting mitochondrial effectiveness, also lengthens telomeres, which are your anti-aging enzyme. I call it the fuse to dynamite. They turn on the very potent SIRT1 gene, but turn off the mTOR gene. There's a YouTube guy that's really made alternate day fasting popular. The only thing is that in a lot of those particular YouTubes, he doesn't use the 36 and 12 idea. So a lot of people are scared or find it difficult to fast for 36 hours and then getting to eat that 12-hour window, whatever they like. There were 60 participants. Fasting every other day could be a secret to losing weight loss. It's sort of like the caveman diet. The average caloric restriction decrease was 35%. People lost almost 8 pounds after 4 weeks. Further, 30 participants will put on this alternative day fasting for 6 months to assess the safety of the diet over a longer period of time. The results were strong. Immune function was stable, reduction in belly fat, and lower levels of a thyroid hormone, which showed increased longevity. Once again, time-restrictive eating in this new pilot study. Those that practiced time-restrictive eating for a 6-hour period and fasted for 8-hour period showed improvement in fat burning, lowered levels of the hunger hormone ghrelin that compared to a 12-hour period was much stronger. So 12 and 12 is a good period. You're not going to get any of the true benefits of time-restrictive eating, intermittent fasting. You've got to go at least to 14, and probably 14 to 16 is a good sweet spot. Here's another study in December of 2019 that talked about restrictive eating in 10 hours or less. During the period of 12 weeks, the results were loss of weight, reduced abdominal fat, lowered blood pressure, lower cholesterol, lowered blood sugar, and lowered insulin level. Essentially, you were able to help decrease the incidence and the criteria for metabolic syndrome. And I believe metabolic syndrome in many ways is the pandemic inside our pandemic, because for us, and I'll talk to Rob about this, we may want to do just a webinar on metabolic syndrome where it's just the 5 criteria and you have to have 3. And when I go through it with patients, it's just an easy way to understand how lifestyle and supplements can make a very potent difference. Here was a newer study that came out in July. Intermittent fasting aids in weight loss, 8-week trial. 58 men and women are assigned to 3 groups. What you saw was time restrictive eating, and a few of the groups were 3 to 7 p.m., 4 hours obviously, 1 to 7 p.m., 6 hours. In those time frames, they ate whatever they wanted. The control group, who ate all day, ate without any restrictions. The results were as follows. Group 1 and 2 consumed 550 fewer calories a day. They lost 3% body weight. As compared to the control group, both groups had a significant decrease in fat mass, reduction in oxidative stress, decrease in fasting insulin, and decrease in insulin resistance. This slide is really a reference for everybody. This reiterates in a slide picture form exactly what you saw: 4 to 6 hour time restrictive eating in adults who had obesity. And essentially you saw, once again, decreased body weight, insulin resistance decrease, decreased oxidative stress, and a decrease in energy intake. Prolonged nightly fasting. Now, it wasn't prolonged FMD, it was not eating at night. Again, better to eat breakfast and skip dinner or supper. 2,400 women with early stage breast cancer. 400 suffered from new tumors within 7 years. Women who fasted for 13 hours nightly had a 26% less risk of recurrence than the control group. The reason, or the suggested reason, was as follows: cancer cells less able than normal cells to survive lack of sugar. A great takeaway: sugar, carbohydrates, as we all know, feed cancer cells. Here's a slide that if you're looking at right now, I would strongly recommend taking a picture, blowing it up, using the PDF that you're supplied with, and taking and showing it to your patients. The time restrictive eating induces autophagy. We're going to go into detail in some succeeding slides. It improves our circadian rhythm. That's a key takeaway. So when I come visit you guys, it's 5 hours later in my circadian rhythm. It really throws me off. Love to come, love nothing more than going to London, just like my New York City, very similar. It's got that beautiful population energy, but again, that circadian rhythm for me is thrown off. Time restrictive eating also promotes longevity, promotes weight loss, increases insulin sensitivity, and improves cognition. And lastly, maybe most importantly for me, it improves gut health. Autophagy. This means self-devouring. You break down the old cells, use that energy to make new cells. Those new cells can be new immune cells, and then we call that immunorejuvenation. The takeaway here is fasting stimulates autophagy, eating releases insulin, especially carbohydrates, disrupts the process of autophagy. So let's go through this. Fasting and caloric restriction both can ramp up autophagy, a kind of very efficient cellular housekeeping. When cells are in a famine mode and they don't have to break down food, they'll pause, usually the usual tasks, and actually stop dividing. Instead, they work on repairing and recycling damaged components and cleaning out dead or harmful cell matter. So autophagy, growth cell ceases and the cells instead focus on internal cleaning. I'm very excited. I think this is an excellent slide. Just take a brief look. I mean, we could have a whole webinar just on this slide. So fasting stimulates the AMPK pathway, which stimulates autophagy because it blocks the mTOR pathway. It stimulates autophagy, which we talked about cellular healing. In addition, it also stimulates what we call mitophagy, the breakdown of mitochondria. So you have the opportunity for your mitochondria to come back more infused and productive and efficient with ATP production. So here you're looking at 2 options in the influence of the timing of eating, as I said earlier, kind of piggybacking on that theme. The gentleman who's a little more heavy or corpulent, if you will, He was eating 6 meals a day. He was skipping breakfast. He was eating late at night. He was eating a high fat, high sugar diet with reduced fasting periods. He had a reduction in insulin sensitivity. His cholesterol, total cholesterol, was thrown off. He was hungry all the time. He was inflamed. His circadian rhythm was disrupted, and he had microbiota negative changes. When you contrast him with the Adonis-looking thin person on the left, wait 2 to 3 days, ate breakfast, last meal was done by 4 in the afternoon, avoided late night snacks, increased protein content of meals, and was fasting up to 16 hours, you saw an increase in AMPK, insulin sensitivity, total cholesterol, decrease in hunger and inflammation, and he was optimizing autophagy, mitophagy, and circadian rhythm. Look at the red, look at the green. Very simply, increased adverse health markers in the red, and that all occurred because you skipped breakfast. All the positive effects of intermittent fasting, time restrictive eating, occurred when you had an early dinner or ended early during the day, like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Fasting reduces inflammation and improves chronic inflammatory disease. They've shown essentially in a study in 2019 that fasting works with acute inflammation, but actually through the macrophages shuts off chronic inflammation. During fasting, our body gets busy with repair and defense mechanisms. If we're eating for long period of times during the day, we don't get the benefit of this cellular housekeeping. Excellent slide. So let's really take a look at this. And you essentially see caloric restriction actually increases IGF, NF-kappa B. When I say increases, it's actually blocking the production of mTOR, NF-kappa B, but stimulating AMPK, SIRT, FOX2, and NRF2. The bottom line is you're getting proliferation, inflammation, mitochondrial physiology improvement, autophagy, and antioxidants, all leading to health span longevity. Intermittent fasting and energy-restricted diets on a lipid profile show tremendous outcomes. The results suggest dietary practices, an excellent means of enhancing lipid profiles in humans. Who shouldn't fast? That's a great question. And that's one I typically get. That's one that I get typically at the end of any webinar and/or presentation. Well, here's the list. Pregnant and breastfeeding women, children, anyone who has a history of an eating disorder, underweight patients, obviously they're underweight, they may lose too much weight, those suffering from heart problems or high blood pressure, adrenal issues, and blood sugar imbalances. I gotta tell you, even though the blood sugar imbalances are there, you know, you're looking at somebody that has a tremendous change in a meal to the other. Yes, then I'd be cautious. But if we're talking a blood sugar elevation, I'm big on intermittent fasting, time restrictive eating. Here's a huge study in Nutrients 2019 where fasting was therapy in neurological diseases. So fasting increased brain-derived neurotrophic factors. It increased beta hydroxybutyrate, AMPK pathway, ghrelin, and adiopectin, which is shown to burn fat in women, whereas it decreased glucose levels, insulin levels, the effectiveness of the mTOR, leptin, interleukin-6, and TNF alpha. So you optimize neuronal biogenesis, optimize neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, and optimize neuron resilience. So for me, fasting has really, if you want the true benefit, you should really say, and I have a blog coming out, Intermittent Fasting's Positive Effect on Brain Health. Once again, I want to speak a little bit more about brain-derived neurotrophic factors. They are supporting branches, networks of neurons. They reduce neurodegenerative disease. They, for me, are fertilizer or miracle glow for the brain. They allow brain cells to fire together, then wire together. Exercise positively impacts BDNF. BDNF is a protein that blocks injury-related cell death and also enhances long-term potentiation in the hippocampus. What enhances BDNF, which is a critical thing for brain neurogenesis? As we said earlier, exercise, turmeric's a great choice, whole coffee extract, DHA, alpha lipoic acid, probiotics, ketone bodies, prebiotics in a 2013 study increased BDNF by 145%. And guess what? Intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting on its own actually enables you to produce BDNF and is a positive implement for brain health, because you do want to avoid the out of order sign for your brain. So now we talked about intermittent fasting. Let me get to use some specific conditions that I've used it with to give you a little feel in the second half of the webinar. Alzheimer's, these are the numbers I was able to get. 6th leading cause of death in the US, 7th in the world. Heart attack has increased in a 15-year period, decreased by 11%. Alzheimer's has increased by 123%. Alzheimer's dementia kills more adults than breast and prostate cancer combined. The cost is going up prodigiously. And in the US, it was a little slower. In the UK, somebody develops the disease every 65 seconds. Women are more susceptible to Alzheimer's than men. It's about 60 to 70%. Women get that mild cognitive impairment. Similar levels of biomarkers have prognostic values for men and women. Many people ask me why women are more susceptible. Well, the number of pregnancies, if they've lost their ovaries, any complications during pregnancy. Here is the enormous takeaway. The evidence is indicating that microglial cells are different in women than men. Microglial cells are your macrophages in your central nervous system, and for some reason, microglial cells, when activated in women, are much more pro-inflammatory because of appearance of estrogen beta receptors, whereas the men are anti-inflammatory initially under onslaught. Let's look at some lab tests. I went to Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter, and the lab tests for brain were fasting glucose, hemoglobin A1C, fasting insulin, homocysteine, C-reactive protein, and vitamin D. A low hemoglobin A1C, as compared to a high hemoglobin A1C, brain loss in those with the highest hemoglobin A1C had almost double the brain loss. So just to use that as an example, we truly want to avoid any of these markers being out of range. I always adhere to Dr. Dale Bredesen's what we call RECODE program, which is the reversal of cognitive decline. I hate to say it on a recorded line, but this is essentially from his book and his webinars. So you're going to get what he has, and now you don't have to spend the associated fee with the programs, because this is it in a synoptic manner. Ketosis. It's a process where the liver produces ketone bodies. Beta hydroxybutyrate increases BDNF production. You can add MCT oil, coconut oil, olive oil, avocado, and nuts. You want to look at the ApoE4. ApoE4, you have 3 APOs. They're cholesterol transporters, protein transporters. ApoE2 implies that you're not going to get Alzheimer's. APO3, which is what I have, means that you're sort of in the middle. You got to work towards it, but you don't have a guarantee. There is no guarantee, but ApoE4 means you are highly susceptible to Alzheimer's. Get your genetic test. If you have it, go on an anti-Alzheimer's protocol now. One takeaway was, as metabolism goes, if it's functioning well, so does your cognition. He also talked about a keto flex, plant-based diet emphasizing non-starchy vegetables, includes cooked, uncooked, colorful vegetables, big proponent of fish, poultry, meat in small amounts. He believed in starting in a 12-hour fast, but those who had the ApoE4 genotype, a 14 to 16-hour fast. I just implement with everybody for good brain health and overall health, at least a 14-hour fast. And a nice little takeaway here is the 3-hour minimum time between dinner and bedtime. So what he calls his keto flex diet, 12 and 3. Intermittent fasting with a ketogenic emphasis really is shown to prevent leaky gut, optimize the microbiome, and we all know the gut-to-brain axis. You'll have better brain cognition if you adhere to these suggestions. Anti-Alzheimer's diet. So some of the things that Bredesen had recommended was choose foods with a glycemic index under 35. Avoid fruit juices in favor of whole fruits. We know that a fruit juice is just fructose, which is not healthy. We're going to talk about blood sugar in a moment. Avoid what he calls the Bermuda Triangle. Crappy saturated fats, no fiber, simple carbs. Always, always avoid gluten and dairy. Reduce your toxic load, consume good fats, don't eat any processed food. If man makes it, I won't eat it. Jack LaLanne. Eat smash fish, smash wild fish, smash acronym for salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Include supplements, and this is his supplemental protocol. We're going to spend some time on this. Most of the time, most people don't share an Alzheimer's protocol. Well, here it is. Methylated B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E with mixed tocopherols, vitamin K2, resveratrol, acetyl-L-carnitine, coenzyme Q10, omega-3 fatty acids, curcumin, pro-resolving mediators, and magnesium. So I'm now going to detail the products for your Alzheimer's protocol. Now, it's not just an Alzheimer's protocol. Please let me reiterate that it's an Alzheimer's protocol with a 14 to 16 hour window of fasting daily. So we're starting with intermittent fasting, and we're also, if I can really help you implement and elucidate to your patients the idea of good, clean eating, even in that period. So the first product that we're looking at that I recommend in the Alzheimer's protocol to match Bredesen is the Dynamic Multi-Power. Research continues to show that deficits in certain vitamins and minerals is a major cause of serious disease states and other health complications. Lack of these essential micronutrients can hinder normal growth, repair, and maturation of vital organs and tissues, like tissues and the brain. You're looking for supplementation of bioavailable vitamins and minerals found in the Dynamic Multi-Power supports high levels of essential micronutrients. So the bottom line is this supplement's good for supporting cognitive function and mood, providing antioxidants to help support oxidative stress, vibrant, healthy skin, energy and vitality, immune function, gastrointestinal function, and last but not least, the multi-powder is rounded out with a blend of 6 potent probiotic strains to help nourish your gastrointestinal tract with beneficial microbes. So you're going to take a good look. That's a great choice. Let's move to Dynamic Brain Restore. Dynamic Brain Restore, once again, you're going to see pertinent research backing benefits of supplementation with this particular product. This product supports cognitive function and healthy mood, supports and maintains DNA, supports blood and oxygen flow to the brain, supports neurotransmitter production in neural tissue, and helps metabolize amino acids. D3, 10,000 with K2. D3 should be called hormone D. D3 has a plethora of properties, one of which is supporting cardiac function, helping with healthy mood and stress, supporting immune function, great for brain health. Pro-resolving mediators. One of my favorite products. They allow for the homeostasis between the initiation and resolution of inflammation. They are resolvent, great word. They are like the fire extinguisher, helping your body return to homeostasis and removing unwanted debris, microbes, and dead immune cells from the body before an immune response can permeate further, especially in the brain. They are essentially a revolutionary family of signaling molecules that work harmoniously to support healthy immune responses and the body to have a good balance. They work with decreasing the inflammation in the brain or the microenvironment in the brain. Curcumin, everybody knows that curcumin increases NRF2, the key antioxidant pathway, and decreases NF-kappa B. So it's known to be tremendously potent because of its antioxidant activity, keeping blood sugar and blood lipids in normal range, critical for overall brain health, and assists in digestive function. So this 400, the takeaway here is that curcumin 400 is a revolutionary curcumin supplement featuring innovative BioCure, a patented ingredient that has been shown in clinical studies to surpass the bioavailability of virtually every other curcumin turmeric extract product on the market. Magnesium glycinate. Magnesium glycinate essentially as we know, magnesium is one of the most abundant essential minerals in the human body and a key factor for more than 300 biological processes. many of which is nervous system function and blood sugar balance. So magnesium is a great choice. Most people are magnesium deficient. Omega-3 fatty acids help with axon healing in the brain, have also shown to help with the cell membrane. Coenzyme Q10 is the most abundant mineral or in heart or nutrient in the heart. Coenzyme Q10 has shown to have tremendous brain benefits. Resveratrol Plus. Resveratrol Plus is a premium nutritional support made to support hormone balance and brain health. It's excellent, once again, for blood lipid levels and vascular function. And medium chain triglyceride or MCT oil is great because it's immediate for brain health. It's fast. You always want to take MCT oil instead of a banana before a test, if you will. Lifestyle changes, exercise, sleep, reduce stress, brain training, resolve inflammation, inhibit new inflammation, remove all inflammatory sources. I think you get the message. We want to contain inflammation. My mantra, as I've said before, is to manage and modulate inflammation. And ultimately, you want to heal the gut with my 7R program, which I'm going to share with you in the next 10 minutes. Don't forget about the concept of detoxing for cognitive decline. One of the best ways to detox is detox phase 1 and 2. Another great way is to sleep because your brain detoxes at night. So the RECODE protocol is to avoid insulin resistance, modulate and manage inflammation and infections, have a good hormone, nutrient, and trophic factor optimization, avoid toxins, and have a restoration and protection of lost or dysfunctional synapses. Let's look at nutritional strategies for blood sugar control. Sugar, as I like to use as a quote, is the sociopath of foods. It acts sweet, but it's truly, really poison. As I said earlier, it is the most used over-the-counter drug in the world today. Sugar, what you really didn't know about it, and you can share this with your patients. 50 minutes of running or 5 miles of walking burns only 250 calories. It's equivalent to 16 tablespoons of sugar. A 20-year study of 4,000 men revealed 1 sugar beverage per day increased heart attack by 20%. So the bottom line is, I come from New York. I quote The Godfather, leave the cannoli, drink the organic coffee. Sugar-free food must contain less than a half a gram of sugar per serving, so it doesn't mean it's truly sugar-free. It just means that it's reduced sugar. Diabetes. Interestingly enough, in the diabetes, that it doubles the risk with more than 2 soft drinks daily. This is true for regular and diet soda. 2 times more likely for what we call LADA. LADA is latent autoimmune diabetes of adults. Subtype of type 1 diabetes develops later in adulthood. It's actually called 1.5 or diabetes 1.5. Shares the characteristics of diabetes 1 and 2. Autoimmune-like type 1, incorporating insulin resistance type 2. A couple of compendiums of different studies. Large meta-analysis of 72 studies on fat show no link with cardiovascular except trans fats. Avoid the donuts, avoid the French fries. Fat is not your foe, carbohydrates is. To piggyback on that, large meta-analysis on sugar found significant link to cardiovascular disease. Heart rate or for CVD was 1.3 lowest, but yet 2.75 highest for sugar consumption. The bottom line is sugar will damage your gut, lead you to gaining weight. It's very deleterious, harmful, if you will, to brain health. Fat versus carb, there was no link, total fat or saturated fat, and heart disease. Fat was found to be protective. Once again, it's your friend, not your foe. So is animal protein. 135,000 people studied. Carbs increased the risk of death and heart attack. All fats reduce the risk. Obviously, eat fat, avoid carbs. I was fortunate enough to be on TV a few years ago, and we were talking about the new dietary guidelines on sugar. That was CBS National TV. And basically, I reiterated essentially what the World Health Organization had said, which was consumers should drastically cut back on sugar, limit to 10% of daily calories, limits on cholesterol were removed, The World Health Organization almost, but through pressure, couldn't suggest removing all sugar from your diet, though they wanted to. And they also made a comment that men and boys consume too much protein during the college years because everybody's trying to bulk. No more sugar. Fructose alters hundreds of brain genes, can lead to a wide range of diseases. Scientists report that a diet rich in omega-3s are a great choice. Fructose alters 900 genes in the hypothalamus and the hippocampus. Fructose removes or adds a biochemical group to cysteine, and this is why you turn the gene on and off. Fructose in fruits is a sneaky carb. It hits your gut and it then hits your liver. Fructose-containing drinks can increase the risk of type 2 diabetes more than other foods that contain fructose. High fructose corn syrup gets in your food because it's now labeled as fructose. So I kind of just said that before, but I want to get into this a little bit more. What happens in the gut after too much fructose? Essentially, up to 60 grams gets absorbed in your gut, then through facilitated transport goes to your liver. So the sugar damages your gut, damages the liver, and then raises your glucose in your blood sugar, leading to insulin. Large amount of carbohydrates are extremely damaging to your overall health. This is where many of our patients are right now. Let's look at blood sugar levels. Remaining blood sugar from a previous meal on the way down. They get hungry. Because of the sugar is a roller coaster as depicted by this graph. They eat a sugary meal. Sugar is rapidly absorbed in the bloodstream, causing blood sugar spikes. Pancreas pumps insulin into the blood in an attempt to bring blood sugar back to proper range. Due to the high amount of sugar, pancreas overestimates how much insulin to pump into the blood. The result, too much sugar is removed from the blood, causing blood sugar crash, and this goes on and on. Glycemic dysregulation. Here it is in the white gray box. If you eat too much or eat too many sweets, your blood sugar will shoot up quickly and drop down precipitously. On the way down, your adrenal glands make cortisol to keep your blood sugar stable. So why am I talking about all this? Why did we go into blood sugar? Because if someone has a blood sugar problem, my protocol, my Dr. Rob's fasting blood sugar protocol incorporates time-restricted eating, intermittent fasting for a 14 to 16-hour period. Now, capsular formula for blood sugar levels, including vitamin, minerals, and associated nutrients to support blood sugar metabolism, are in GlucoIR. GlucoIR is a staple. So here's what I recommend and why I recommend GlucoIR. It's a high-quality vitamin and mineral supplement formulated with a proprietary blend of natural extracts and powders for optimum support in balancing healthy blood glucose levels already in the normal range. GlucoIR combines the B vitamin biotin with the trace mineral chromium to provide clinical research-backed support in supporting blood glucose already in the normal range. The proprietary blend of natural plant-based extracts included GlucoIR provides further support in maintaining healthy blood glucose levels. Fenugreek, berberine, bitter melon, green tea leaf, and specific extracts have all also undergone clinical studies showing positive effects in helping maintaining blood glucose levels. The unique combination of vitamins, minerals, and plant-based extracts in GlucoIR provides advanced nutritional support for optimum blood glucose balance, already trying to get into the natural range with your intermittent fasting. You add alpha lipoic acid, which is a product on its own, which is great for blood sugar metabolism. It's the only thing that works with the watering the fat part of the cell. And you add your berberine HCl, which is an overlooked herb, 3 months on, 1 month off. You combine that with your GlucoIR and time-restricted eating, and you've got a potent blood sugar protocol. The keto diet. We're going to do a whole section on the keto diet. Just wanted to give you a little, if you will, teaser. I believe the keto diet's a great choice within the intermittent fasting. So you really, in this study, wanted to explore the efficacy of keto and its patients that were either overweight or obese, that had with or without diabetes type 2. The keto diet macro actually showed a reduction in insulin levels, which redirected lipid metabolism, allow for ketone utilization. Again, ketone bodies are excellent energy sources in the body. They're fabulous energy sources for the brain. The review consisted of 14 randomized controlled trials. 134 patients were overweight or obese. 44 patients were diabetics. 290 were non-diabetic patients. The lab assessments were as follows: fasting glucose, hemoglobin A1C, fasting insulin, C-peptide, total cholesterol, triglycerides, LDL, HDL, C-reactive protein, and serum creatine. Also collected and noted were body weight, BMI, waist circumference, and blood pressure. The effects of the keto diet on glycemic control over a 3 to 12 month period had positive results. They were actually more significant in patients with diabetes than with low fat. This was demonstrated, significant demonstration, by objective markers, which are blood tests, significant decrease in hemoglobin A1C, HOMA, and for all diabetic patients. The keto diet in a 4 to 12 month period demonstrated significant weight reductions in both diabetic and non-diabetic patients. The lipid profiles improved in the diabetic patients, increased HDL, decreased triglyceride levels. It was an extremely effective strategy for weight loss. The transitioning to it was tough. Exogenous ketones as a valuable adjunct. Exogenous ketones, MCT oil, like Rob carries, and ketone salts. Intermittent fasting is synergistic with the ketogenic diet. So some of the benefits of fasting on keto were as follows. It gets you into a state of ketosis faster. It enables you to drop weight faster, increases mental clarity, improves health by enhancing muscle growth, reduction of inflammation, and improving insulin sensitivity. Fasting induced the gold medal winner, beta-hydroxybutyrate, which delayed vascular aging. Beta-hydroxybutyrate promotes division and multiplication of cells that line the inside of blood vessels. It actually delayed aging through epithelial cells. It decreased cellular aging and death. It also kept the DNA of the endothelial cells young and undamaged. So if the vascular system becomes younger, they theorize you're less likely to have cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's. Disease that, because all diseases are age related, many of them are more inflammation related. Fasting, intermittent fasting, produces beta-hydroxybutyrate. You also have the effect of fasting on shaping the gut microbiota. Intermittent fasting showed a great way to change the diversity in the gut in a 16-hour period of fasting. Intermittent fasting, interestingly enough, in the gut microbiota, IF actually promoted white adipose browning, decreasing obesity by changing the gut microbiota. White adipose tissue to brown adipose transition is a very beneficial reaction. Altered function of gut microbiota in fasting groups induced beige formation, and the gut microbiota fermentation products such as lactate increased during fasting. Intermittent fasting benefits for gut health. Gut health matters. Well, we just told you why. Gut health matters because gut is the epicenter of your health. Circadian rhythm, as I described to you before, was a critical role in your overall health, giving your digestive system a break. We're not made to eat all day throughout the day. Intermittent fasting is a great way to improve the bidirectional communication between the gut and the brain and the gut. The bottom line is that intermittent fasting is something that we can all use. Time restrictive eating, intermittent fasting in a 14 to 16 hour period. It's been shown in the literature to be powerful for health promotion, and it costs nothing. So let me share very quickly as we get towards the end my 7R program. You've seen this before, so I'm just going to highlight this. Number one, reset diet, lifestyle, and mindset. Incidentally, we have already done a gut webinar where we go into more detail. I would probably suggest to Rob to also attach it. So if you want more information on this and go into more detail, you can look at it in its entirety where I really break it down. You want to remove triggers. Removing the trigger means removing unwanted pathogens. You want to replace digestive enzymes and stomach acid. You want to regenerate. You want to heal and seal and repair the damaged intestinal mucosa. Reinoculate with quality pre and probiotics. reintroduce certain foods. So you want to reintroduce foods. You don't want every food sensitivity. So I jumped ahead to food sensitivities. Food sensitivities typically need to be removed because they can damage the gut lining. You can have a gut lining and then have a food sensitivity. So you really want to, one of the ways to check other than just serum tests, you also can check by reintroducing certain foods for 3 days, putting those foods back in to somebody's diet and watching no symptomology implies you're no longer sensitive to the food. We always want to retain our health through good gut health, and GI integrity. Here is my Super 7 action plan. I've got 5 to go through it. I'm going to give you an epigrammatic version. I do believe you're all going to like it. You have seen it before. Big proponent in the beginning of Aspergillosis. Aspergillosis is a yeast that functions as a probiotic. Great choice at the beginning. Medium chain triglyceride oil, always imbuing the brain with energy. Glycinate, we talked about it before. Most people are magnesium deficient. You want to remove, you're going to do so by using Spectrum AR. Spectrum AR is a great product using oregano oil. It takes away all the pathogens in the upper GI tract. Berberine Pro and Spectrum BR. BR and berberine, good for the bowel, has a lot of medicinal effects. Garlic Pro is a garlic formula. Garlic is your own antimicrobial, your own natural antibiotic. And Dynamic Detox. Dynamic Detox, we are going to do a detox webinar in the future. Dynamic Detox supports your body's natural detoxification processes, boasts antioxidants capacity, supports energy production and vitality, supports healthy immune and gastrointestinal function, really helps you meet the micronutrients requirements. I believe in detox during the remove phase because you got to remove those toxins. Replace digestive enzymes, stomach acid, pancreatic enzymes, and bile. Your Digestive Complete is one of my most used formulas because it has stomach, pancreatic, and bile all in one bottle. A great choice to carry in your toolbox. Regenerate. You want to regenerate the gut lining. I mix the dynamic GI integrity, the nutrients that are involved, enable integrity in the GI region, basically help healing and sealing. Whereas GI Restore, we do 1 scoop of each. I mix it, which is very unique in that the GI Restore helps restore the microenvironment. Pro-resolving mediators, we talked about them before, like the pro-resolving mediators because of their positive anti-inflammatory properties, which is very critical in the gut. Omega-3 fatty acids have shown to actually shut off triggers of inflammation via the gut. Alpha lipoic acid is shown to be great with IBD. There are vitamin D3 receptors in the gut, so I always like vitamin D3 with K2. Reinoculate. The reinoculate, you have your Spore Probio. Your Spore Probio is Bacillus subtilis. It's got the best prebiotic called a pre-tick, XOS. The XOS prebiotic is the only prebiotic that we know for now that feeds the good bacteria. You can also add, so you can double down on what we call an ultrabiotic daily multi-strain that has a full composite of upper and lower region good quality probiotics. Some, what I like to refer to is my reintroduction of certain foods. So you always want to avoid GPS, gluten, processed food, sugar, dairy, nicotine, artificial sweeteners, DNA, no fried foods, and any foods that you still test allergic, even more so sensitive to. Here's your Super 7 action plan. Here's where you want to go. Super 5, this is what you want to do every day. Diet, lifestyle, mindset. For your gut, use your Dynamic GI Restore. I take it every day because I want to keep my gut in pristine condition. You can switch or take both. Spore Probiotic, Ultrabiotic Daily Multistrain, Dynamic Greens. Dynamic Greens is mostly organic, but more so than that, it gives you all the needed 20 fruits and vegetables in 1 scoop. And I mix it with the GI Restore and the Dynamic Multi-Collagen Renew, which has collagens 1 through 5, 10, and 15. So it's a full composite collagen product, which enables you to heal gut, skin, hair, nails, tendons, and cartilage. And last but not least, this would be the Pierre Resistance. Essentially, what you're seeing is if you're able to help the microbiota through supplements and intermittent fasting, gut health will be better. Gut to brain signaling will be better. This is what I like to refer to as my three-way calling. Running out of time, but fasting programs to increase revenue. I found that since I've incorporating intermittent fasting, time restrictive eating, and that's improved my outcomes, it's been a direct correlation to increased revenue. And revenue in that patients now are talking about what I do, talking about the multiple facets in which I individualize for my patients. Fasting has grown my nutrition practice since I've implemented it by about 20%. And in the advent of where we're going to talk about immune health now and for a while, the idea of fasting with a lifestyle and proper supplements enables people to have the immunorejuvenation and immune resilience. It's a great add to every doctor's armamentarium. One quick little thing before we get to any questions. We got to keep an eye out. My book, I'm working hard. I was talking to Rob before. Super Highway to Health. It's coming in January 2021. 7 steps to optimizing the gut-brain connection. Always like to end with a quote. The mind once stretched by a new idea never returns to its original dimensions. Any interest in reaching out to me, here's my website. Here are my social media. Please follow me on Facebook. And I'm going to turn it over to Rob right now. I thank you all for taking time during your busy day, whether it's live or Memorex, and I'm here to help. And I look forward to our next 4 webinars.
Hey Rob, thank you so much for that talk. Like I say, if anyone's got any questions in the meantime, just fire them along. There was a couple that we'd had, but you'd already answered them, more about if there's any people that you wouldn't recommend fasting for. I just want to give everyone a reminder. The next webinar is on the 17th of September, which will be the detox solution. And that'll be at 2 while 3 again, but we'll fire your emails out about that. The recording and the slides of this will be available tomorrow. I'll make sure that goes out to you. And just a quick note on the Dynamic Multi-Collagen Renew, that should be with us next week. So I know it's been in very high demand. That should be with us next week. So just bear with me one sec while I read this last question. Yeah, Dr. Rob, have you ever had anyone with gastric discomfort whilst taking Spectrum AR or Spectrum BR?
You know, that's a good question. I'm sorry. That's a good question. And sometimes I get discomfort, but it's very rare. And the reason again in discomfort is the body, the way I like to describe it, is fighting back, because that AR, you're removing the airway stuff, you know, and the body doesn't like to get unsettled. So kind of like when you treat somebody, maybe the initial, they get a little uncomfortable, but they start to feel better. And then we're talking 1 or 2 patients. So again, with oregano oil, if you feel any discomfort, add a little inositol and that'll resolve it.
Thank you. If they do get discomfort, could the remove phase just last a little bit longer?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. It just, there was a split
So if I think if the question is if someone's experiencing discomfort, could the removed phase last longer? Could you spend a little longer in that phase?
You could. You know, each phase could be a week. Each phase could be 6 months. Obviously, it's not going to be 6 months and it's not going to be a week. So you've got to clear them of the symptomology or whatever you're using as baseline. So again, the 7R program, what I like to hang my hat on, if you will, is how fluid I've tried to make it for all practitioners.
And the last question, Dr. Wafay, correct me if I'm wrong, but is a question restoring patients' microbiome with high glutamine, would it benefit cancer patients even? What's your intake on that?
Well, I don't treat a lot of cancer patients. We're not allowed here. However, the glutamine does in literature show to help cancer patients, and glutamine is a staple, unlike most of our powders, to help because it's known it's the most abundant amino acid in the body, and it's also known to help with mucosal integrity healing.
Perfect. And that's it. So that's a wrap. Dr. Rob, I'd like to thank you once again for spending your morning with us. Thank you to everyone that attended for spending their afternoon. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you very much.
You got it. Thanks so much. Ciao.